our free hits. Under 20 boys, 100 metres, 10:35.
Ladies and gentlemen, we may have just witnessed one of the most jaw-dropping performances in youth track and field history. A 16-year-old named Gout Gout just shattered expectations, history books, and possibly the future of sprinting in one breathtaking moment. At the Australian All-School Championships, the crowd came for a race but left in awe, stunned by what this teenage phenom just pulled off. He didn't just win, he made the entire stadium forget how to breathe. And if you're wondering who Gout Gout is or why his name is echoing across the global track scene, buckle up, because what just unfolded wasn't just a race. It was a message to the world. In a matter of seconds, this teenager took down a 56-year-old national record and beat the greatest sprinter of all time at his own age. That's right, Gout just dethroned Usain Bolt's youth legacy. You think you've seen teenage talent before? Think again. This was lightning in human form, and it's only just the beginning. Just a few months ago, Gout Gout was a name whispered in coaching circles. A promising talent, yes, but nothing could have prepared us for the explosion that was coming. He clocked a blazing 10.17 in the 100 meters, and that alone would have placed him among the fastest teenagers on Earth. But when he backed that up with a 10.04, clean, legal, and effortless, jaws started dropping across the entire sprinting world. Analysts were stunned. How was a 16-year-old running with this kind of power, control, and finish? Coaches who had spent decades grooming champions were suddenly circling his name in red ink. The comparisons came flying in. Arion Knighton, Trayvon Bromell, even young Bolt. But Gout's style was different. There was a rawness to his stride, an effortless float through the drive phase that seemed to defy physics. His races weren't just fast, they were violent reminders that age means nothing when talent is this generational. And just when we thought the hype couldn't get bigger, he walked into the 200 meters and did something the world will talk about for years. It was the final we'd all been waiting for. Gout Gout, already crowned the future of sprinting, stepped onto the track for the 200 meters, the distance where true legends are forged. And while he was the favorite, no one could have predicted the storm he was about to unleash. The gun fired, and he launched cleanly, sitting with the pack like a predator biding its time. But when that curve broke and the straight opened up, everything changed. Gout didn't just accelerate, he ignited. The final 100 meters became a demolition zone. One by one, his competitors faded into the background like ghosts in his slipstream. You could feel it in the crowd. This wasn't just fast, this was unnatural. He stormed through the finish line, and the clock read 20:70. Even at that moment, the crowd was stunned. That alone would have placed him among the top youth sprinters in the world. But this wasn't the end. In fact, what came next turned an incredible race into pure sporting history. As the officials reviewed the timing systems, murmurs ran through the stadium. Something didn't add up. That run looked faster than 20:70. And then it happened. The scoreboard updated. The new official time? 20.04 seconds. The air was sucked out of the venue. The crowd froze, then erupted into a frenzy of disbelief. 20.04. At 16 years old. That wasn't just a personal best. That was a nuclear bomb dropped on the history books. Gout didn't just win the race. He obliterated the expectations of what any teenage sprinter could ever be. The timing officials confirmed the wind reading was legal. There were no flukes, no caveats, no asterisk. This was pure, unfiltered speed, captured in real time. Coaches sprinted toward the infield. Fans were crying. Commentators were scrambling to recheck national and world records. Gout had done something so rare, so outrageous, that it immediately demanded global attention. But the true gravity of the moment wouldn't hit until people realized whose record he had just broken. For 56 years, one name had stood atop Australia's 200-meter leaderboard. Peter Norman, the Olympic silver medalist who ran 20.06 in the 1968 Games. That time was more than just a national record. It was a cultural artifact, a piece of athletic and political history etched into the global memory. Norman stood on the podium alongside Tommy Smith and John Carlos in one of sport's most iconic civil rights moments. His name symbolized courage, excellence, and integrity. And now, decades later, a 16-year-old named Gout Gout came along and took that time down. Not by milliseconds, he beat it by 2 full hundredths, a chasm in sprinting terms. To break that kind of record at that age is something most thought impossible. It's like discovering a new law of physics. This wasn't just a victory over time, it was a passing of the torch. From one generation to another, Gout now wears the crown, not by accident, but by sheer brilliance and force of nature. And as stunning as this moment was, it was about to get even bigger.
Let's make this crystal clear. Usain Bolt is the greatest sprinter of all time. At age 16, he ran 20.13 in the 200 meters, and that time stood for 2 decades as the gold standard for teenage excellence. Nobody touched it, not Bromell, not Lyles, not Knighton. But on this day, in this race, Gout Gout did. With a 20.04, he didn't just beat Bolt's record, he smashed it. And with that, he put his name alongside a legend. Sports writers scrambled to confirm it. Was this real? Had someone actually outdone Bolt's 16-year-old pace, legally, cleanly, and in front of a roaring crowd? Yes, he had. The weight of that accomplishment cannot be overstated. Bolt's name is synonymous with speed, dominance, and unbreakable records. And Gout, without warning, rewrote one of the most sacred pages in sprinting history. He became the fastest 16-year-old ever over 200 meters. That alone is a career-defining moment for most. But for Gout, it felt like just the start of something terrifyingly great. But before we crown him the absolute fastest youth sprinter ever, there's one name still above him, Erriyon Knighton, who ran a ridiculous 1984 at the US Olympic trials when he was just 17. That's the current world youth record, and it still stands untouched, for now. Because if Gout can drop from 2029 to 2004 in a matter of weeks, what happens when he gets a perfect lane, stronger competition, and refined technique? The gap is shrinking fast, and experts are already whispering, is the sub-20 coming next? The prospect is unreal. Only 2 athletes under 18 have ever done it, and Gout might be the third. The world is officially on notice. From the IAAF to Nike to World Athletics insiders, people are watching his every move. The Knighton versus Gout debate isn't just hypothetical anymore. It's the next great sprint rivalry in the making. And the clock is ticking toward what could be the fastest teenage 200-meter showdown the world has ever seen. There's something almost supernatural about the way Gout finished that race. While most sprinters struggled to maintain speed in the final stretch, Gout exploded. His last 100 meters weren't just strong, they looked otherworldly. Analysts tried estimating his split, and the numbers were insane, somewhere in the range of 9.2 to 9.4 seconds. That's elite adult territory, and this is a 16-year-old. He didn't stumble into that finish line. He surged like a rocket, widening the gap on every stride. The camera couldn't even keep up. It was one of those moments that forced silence out of the commentators, the kind where nobody knows what to say because it's too unreal. Coaches watching from the stands were shaking their heads in disbelief. Some called it the cleanest, top speed phase they've seen from a youth sprinter in years. And the scary part? He still has so much more to develop. More strength, more tactics, more polish. If this was Gout raw, imagine him refined. So here's the real question. What's next for Gout Gout?
Because this wasn't a lucky break or a one-time fluke. This was dominance. At just 16, he's broken national records, surpassed the great Usain Bolt at the same age, and ignited a conversation that reaches from Australia to the global stage. Will we see him at the Youth Olympics? Could he be invited to Diamond League races? Is Paris 2024 out of reach? Not at all. In fact, it might be just around the corner. Scouts are calling. Journalists are circling. Sponsors are already whispering. But all Gout has to do is keep doing what he's doing. Run, grow, and rewrite history, one race at a time. Because if he breaks 20 seconds in the next 12 months, he'll become one of only a handful of humans, at any age, to ever do it. And he'll do it before he's even legally an adult. This isn't hype anymore. This is the birth of sprinting's next global king. And the world better be ready.